sacred code is supernatural and cosmic. It bridges starseed origins, galactic contact, and remembrance. DNA activation, soul memory, psychic development, intuition, timeline shifting, and manifestation, ancient wisdom, modern consciousness, and real world embodiment. It's where the supernatural becomes natural again. It's not fantasy, not an escape, but as a powerful tool to be used, as a powerful truth to be understood. The reason you are called here is not because you're here to follow. You're here to remember who you are. Your soul carries a code. This space simply helps you unlock them safely, clearly, and powerfully. You're not broken, and you're not late. You're not imagining it. You're remembering. Welcome to the Sacred Code.
Hi, guys.
Man, I just
Hello.
love your graphics. I just love them. I'm sitting here going like this to the music.
I know. I love that intro.
Hi, everybody.
Huge kudos to Mary for doing that intro. It rocks. It really
Fabulous.
Thank you.
does. You bet. Yeah. Thank
She's
you.
like,
Well, this is one of our favorite weeks, doing the Sacred Code because it's the Experiencer Week. And we have Deb Kauble, and it's hard to put into words. I call her Deb too. Sorry.
Or Google's.
Or Google's. Every time she actually gives me a little bit of insight with Deb too here. She gives me psychic information. If I have something weird going on, I say, okay, Google's, what's this? She will look it up and it will happen for me, just so you know. And that's why I call her Google's. But to meet Deb is just, it's kind of a breath of fresh air in this childlike energy full of life, regardless of the experiences that she went through. And I think, personally, I find it I'm trying to find the right word, very inspiring. The fact of you took all this trauma from your experiences and turned it into something to help everybody else. And it never changed your soul once. And I'm going to let you actually tell your story, and then, we can feed into it. But I just want you to know you're on because we love you.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very sweet. My old crinkled up hands, I can't really do that anymore. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Means a lot.
Yeah.
Well, so you're a lifelong experiencer, correct?
That is correct. As far back as I can remember, 6 or 7 years old, and maybe even farther back. I don't know for sure. It's all fuzzy at that point because I'm old. That's a long time ago. But yeah, I've had several different kinds of experiences. I've had what people consider. I grew up in a house that had paranormal experience. I just assumed everybody did for the longest time when I was little. And my mother was interested in, she loved Sylvia Brown. And before that, Jean Dixon. That's going way back, if you remember those names. And she read their books, and she even messed with us kids. Like we would play cards, and we'd have flashcards when we were kids, and we would play school. And Mom would be the teacher, but the flashcards my mom was playing were unlike any other kids' mom's flashcard games. I didn't know it at the time till I got in school and actually played with real flashcards. But my mom would, instead of showing us things and telling us to tell her what they were and all, she would turn them face down on the table and tell us, show me where the circle is. And we did it. Because we thought everybody did that. And my father was interesting. My mom may have had her own paranormal or her own UFO connected or NHI connected experience when she was little. And I didn't even know about that until Bud started the investigation after he came out, after I'd written him the letter about what had happened in 83. And he came out and started investigating the family and researching. And I had no idea that my mom had had this experience up to that point. And then my father, my grandma always claimed he was a psychic. He was born with a veil over his face. And I, for years, had no idea what that meant until I found out he was born with his plus his water sac intact, like he was in a plastic bag when he came out. He told her one time the neighborhood was going to catch on fire. He was afraid to get off the school bus, and the next day, a bunch of houses in the neighborhood caught on fire, and he wouldn't get off the bus, and just things like that, all the way up to the point where when my mom passed away, I knew he was coming too close. I felt it. So I went up and spent the night with her in the hospital. And Daddy and my older sister went home, and I hear this clamoring at midnight, and here he is, old man, shuffling down the hallway. He had called my brother to make my brother come to bring him to the hospital. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, your mother called me." And I said, "No, she didn't. She's been asleep all night." And he goes, "Did I say she used the phone?" My golly, he sat with me the whole time, and she passed away in the morning. So, I mean, we are interesting folk to begin with. And then I had maybe two or three contact with NHI, one at maybe 6 or 7, one at 17, one at 18, then another one at about I was 24, I think, in 83. And then another one when I was, I think, 30, maybe 33. And that was the last physical kind of contact with witnesses and stuff. And then it started flipping, moving towards something more metaphysical and, I don't know, consciousness connected and, lucid dreaming and what people call downloads now, which before we didn't have that word back then. I just called it annoying thoughts that wouldn't leave me alone. Pretty close description, I guess. So, I've been around for a long time. I've been involved, I was born into it. I feel like somebody was born because of it, and why I'm here is because of it. And I've thought for years and years, I got something to do. It's really important, but what the hell is it? I don't know. But I finally figured out a while back it was to help other people wake up, basically realize what they are and what they're capable of. Like, I'm no better or different than anyone else. Everybody is like this or can be this way. They just don't remember yet, but they will.
So true. So true. So when you speak of Bud, you're actually talking about Bud Hopkins, the great Bud Hopkins. Can you tell a little bit about how that transpired, how you decided to contact him?
I had never written I'd read many books. I had a library card that, it smoked because it was free to go read books. And I was a single mom with little kids. So we were at the library every weekend, and I had picked up a book called Missing Time by Bud Hopkins. Really, to be honest with you, what attracted me to it was big, bright orange cover and great big letters. Caught my eye, no lie. And then I brought it home and I tried to read it. I had to stop. I kept trying to read it, and I'd have a panic attack, and I'd have to stop. And I finally had to take it back to the library. But I had noticed in the back of the book there was an address for the guy that you could write to him if you thought you'd had this kind of experience. Well, this was just prior to the June 30, 83 experience. Now, in my mind, I was thinking, I think my sister Kathy might have had an abduction experience. She used to talk about a an event that happened to her in 1965 after dropping my mom off at a bingo game. And at this point, she got compelled to turn into a church parking lot, and her whole car got lifted up into this thing. And when the next thing she remembered, she was waking up in the car, and now it's dark, and it's also time to pick mom up from bingo. She'd had all this missing time. She talked about it for years, and I assumed that it was true. My sister wouldn't lie about this stuff. She'd get mad if we kind of laugh at her when we got older. So that was in my mind. Then I had that event happen in 83 when I was living with my parents, just moved back home with my 2 kids. And I encountered something in the backyard at my parents' house one night, that night, June 30th, that just like changed me and my whole life forever and the whole trajectory of it. It left a mark in the yard that lasted for several years. The snow melted off of the first year. It damaged my eyes, but I was hit in the chest with this bright white light, and it did something to my eyes, which later in my 30s, I got diagnosed with cataracts and macular degeneration, which I blame on that, even though I can't, prove it.
Right.
My mom was kind of a witness to it. We had 2 independent neighbors that witnessed that night. Both reported a bright flash and loud noise coming from mom and dad's backyard. And we didn't know about them until Bud came and started knocking on doors, by the way. And then my dog had been out there with me that night. And within 6 weeks or so, she had to be put down because she just fell apart physically. And I started having a floodgate of memories open back up as soon as I saw the mark in the yard. Memories of things that had happened in the past that I just kind of, put somewhere because I couldn't figure it out. And I remembered that book, and I remembered Bud, and I remembered the address in the back. So I went back to the library, I want to say probably a few weeks or less after the June 30, 83 incident. And I got the address out, and I wrote him this 14-page letter with a bunch of Polaroids. Basically, I told him about my sister's story first, which pissed her off. She's like, because I didn't ask her, she got over it. Wah, wah, wah. But, and then at the very end of this letter, I said, oh, by the way, this happened. And then I told him this whole thing about the night of June the 30th, 1983. And I don't know how long it was after that. I think it was maybe so this happened. Mom probably mailed the letter about the mid-July. And I think he called like mid-August, something like that, or near the end of August. And I talked to him. My heart was pounding. He talked to my mom. He talked to my sister. And then he's like, I'd like to research your family in this case because I think it's important. And the family agreed. Okay. So I sold my washer and dryer that was in the storage unit to get a bus ticket to go to New York. And like halfway there, I had a panic attack and almost jumped off the bus because I was thinking to myself, what are you doing?
Right.
What is wrong with you? You're a mother. You are getting on a bus. You are going all the way to big New York City. I'd never been anywhere by myself, by the way, at that point, and was scared to death of just that. But I'm thinking, this guy wrote a book about UFOs and aliens. He could be an axe murderer, and you're going to walk right into his web and get snagged up and never see your kids again. And I just freaked out. But I calmed down and I went through with it, and I'm glad I did. And I'll always say he must have been, when I got off the bus and met him there, he was very kind, but he took me straight to the psychiatrist's office in New York, right before he took me to a studio or anything.
Wow.
And had me meet the psychiatrist. And I thought later on, yeah, he probably was, thinking the same thing about me.
A little secret psyche eval, huh?
I know, yeah. But I mean, she was super kind, and we talked about hypnotherapy, if that was an option I wanted to do. And she explained to me a little about it. She trained Bud in his technique. So, meeting him was just like, now, despite all the traumatic things that I had happen to me with regard to this stuff, I wouldn't change anything. Now, if you'd asked me this a few weeks after June 30th, I'd have said, hell yeah. But now, in retrospect and knowing what I know, I wouldn't change a thing, because if that hadn't happened in June and I hadn't met Bud, there would be absolutely nothing about my life or me that would be even remotely recognizable. Not any shred. And I feel that I am right exactly where I'm supposed to be, and doing what I should be doing. And it was, I mean, it was destiny, I guess. I remember I was sitting in his studio. It was like probably the second trip that I'd made out there, and then he'd made a trip to Indianapolis in between. And I was sitting in his studio, and I was just surrounded with boxes and boxes and boxes of letters from all over the world. And he was showing me the things people had said, and they were all the same things, and they were all like what I was telling him, and drawings and things. And it dawned on me, this was after he decided that, he wanted to investigate us. And I looked up and I said, why did you answer my letter? And why am I here? And why are we doing this? And why are you investigating my story and my family? Why me? Why me? And he looked down. I said, it could have been any one of these people. They're all saying the same thing I did. And he looked down at me and he said, that's the $64,000 question, kid. And I said, do you suppose it might be destiny? And he goes, might be. He wouldn't commit to anything too woo-y, but yeah, it might be.
Right.
That's one thing. I got wooier as I woke up and learned how to cope with the things that had gone on with me and understood more about it. I started, expanding my mind and my spirituality and my ideas and everything else. And even though Bud wasn't, people meet me now and they're kind of surprised that I don't necessarily adhere to all of his theories, but right. I also understand. He said to me one time, don't you ever give them credit for what you did. And I thought, I understand why he said that, because he's a researcher. He is he's an investigator who has seen people like me completely destroyed at my very worst, and like thrown me a life jacket. He's in the emergency room of the entire phenomenon, so to speak. I said, and he's a human being. He's was very compassionate and loving, and it had to have an effect on him. But I also understood that he couldn't see it from my perspective as the one who experienced it. And I knew without them, I couldn't do this. And I visualized myself as a little pebble in a slingshot pocket. And the farther down the universe, whoever, life or them or anybody pulled me, when they let go, the farther up I could go. So I understood that I couldn't do this without them. And I understood that he couldn't see it that way. So, but he supported me all the way to the very end.
He got a lot of flack too from his peers, right?
Sometimes he did. Yeah. He not everybody, they'd be like, oh, you're just an artist. You're not a scientist or this or that. And I'll tell you what, yes, he was an artist first, but he left no stone unturned. All of the things that he did, and the money and time that he invested in just my family alone in the research that he did was comparable to any. I think he did more than some of these folks do today. He left no stone unturned, and he did everything possible that he could do to try to find the prosaic answer to that. And I learned from him, and I do the same thing. I did that myself before, and I still do it today. When weird things happen, I always go for the rational explanation first. And usually it works, but sometimes it don't. Right. Sometimes it doesn't. So, yeah.
Well, your case, Deb, was so unique. Some of it is storybook classic for sure. And we still find that universally, the stories are about the same. The experiences and the contact is, about the same. But yours had a lot of physical evidence as well, where many don't.
Yeah,
things are somewhat similar. I don't have any physical evidence or proof, and you really did.
We had the mark in the yard that lasted, and Bud did soil sample testing on it, and they had to do extraordinary things to try to get the normal soil that was sent along with it to look anything remotely like the affected soil, and it still wasn't exactly as bad, and they still couldn't make the soil not. This soil completely rejected all moisture, water, and every kind of moisture. And they could never figure that out. So we had that. And we had like the coax cable from my dad's ham radio tower that ran kind of over where the mark was into the house, in the back of the house where his radio room was. The plastic was intact, but all of the metal inside, all the wires inside were all melted into one giant solid piece. And the transformer blew up in the back by the swimming pool within a week. The transformer went. And of course, we had the two neighbors. And then Mom even was a kind of a witness that night. She described the same white ball of light in the backyard around the bird feeder that I saw next to the egg-shaped craft thing. And then even 20 years later, after Intruders was published and somebody in my neighborhood read the book, she wrote a letter to Bud. And this woman lived right behind my mom and dad on the next street. And there was a small, sparse wooded area that when it was full foliage, we couldn't see each other's houses, but we could kind of see each other's houses a little bit when the leaves fell. And she wrote that she couldn't say the exact date, but it was around that time frame. Her boys used to spend the night in the garage, and they, the back of their garage door opened and faced Mom and Dad's house, the back of Mom and Dad's house. And her boys and their friends would go out there every weekend and do boy stuff and camp out back there and everything. And she said one evening they came tearing in, screaming and hollering, and were frightened beyond belief. She said they were so frightened that they never, ever went back out there that night, and they never slept out there again with their friends. But they claimed that they saw hundreds of balls of white light about the size of basketballs floating through the woods between our house and theirs.
Wow.
And this was 20 years later. This woman wrote to Bud, and when they figured out where it was Mom and Dad lived, because the house, everything in Intruders was a pseudonym. The name of the area where we lived is a pseudonym. All of our names are pseudonyms. But I think, since this woman kind of lived in the neighborhood and Bud had gone around knocking on doors and stuff, I think most of the people right around us became aware after a while of who we were and what had happened there. And that's why the woman was able to figure out, hey, my house looks right behind theirs. So yeah, we've got all of that. And then I had 6 hours of psychological testing at Columbia Hospital, verbal and written. I had EEG where they put the wires on your head, and a CAT scan to make sure I didn't have epilepsy or brain tumors or anything like that. During the psychological exam, the only thing they could determine, I wasn't schizophrenic or prone to fantasy or anything like that. All they basically said was I had anxiety, that I exhibited symptoms of something called PTSD, which we had no idea what that meant at the time, because this was, 40 years ago.
Right.
And that I was of above average intelligence. That's all they could determine from the testing. And then I had a voice stress test a few years after that, which is, I guess, like a lie detector test. Bud had made arrangements for this. He found somebody in my town. However, I don't know how he managed to find someone in Indy. And so I met this guy at a hotel, and we did the voice stress test. And afterwards, Bud, I didn't talk to the guy anymore. I only saw him during the test. And then he talked to Bud after it was over. And then Bud called me and he says, well, so-and-so said that. He said, I cannot. And this guy was blind. He had no idea who I was. He had no idea what the questions were going to be or anything. He went in completely blind. And he told Bud, I can't tell you whether or not a UFO landed in her parents' backyard. And I can't tell you whether or not she's seen aliens, but I can tell you that she believes that she did. And Bud said, that's all I needed to know. So, I mean, he's compiled a lot of evidence to come with this story. It's not just a story of lights in the sky or I saw aliens or something. Like he worked hard for 2 years to do this.
So can I ask you a question, Deb? The circle in your backyard, did they ever test it for radiation?
My dad and Uncle Jim did. I don't know what Bud did. I don't know. I don't recall him having anything like that. But I know that my Uncle Jim had a Geiger counter from World War II. I don't know if he had it or he got it at like the surplus store or something. But he brought it over to the house, and him and my dad. When my dad was a Marine and my Uncle Jim was an Army guy, so they were back in the workshop trying to get it to zero. And they couldn't get it to zero until they were all the way back to the fence line which is quite a ways away. And so they got it to zero. And as they got closer to the house, before they even got near the mark in the yard, it pegged and they could not get it to work right. And I don't know whether they knew what they were doing or not. I'm just going to be honest. I have no idea. They think they knew what they were doing. And they think that it was something that was anomalous. And I remember Dad telling Bud about it. And there was even somebody from ABC News in New York came to our house at once it became public, and the book was written. And I remember Dad talking about that as well. So yeah, they tried. And, my dog, she didn't die outright. She had to be put down. But right off, she had been out there with me that night. Her hair fell out off her back, and we first thought it was mange until it started falling off everywhere. And she started getting black sores all over her. And then her teeth started showing up in her food bowl when she would
Poor
eat.
baby.
And her eyes got all white over, like cataract white, and her gums were bleeding. And she would like stand in front of a brick wall and just stand there. And obviously she couldn't eat. She was losing weight real fast. And nobody in the family had the heart to take her to the vet because we knew it was coming. So my little sister is the one who took her to the vet, and the vet just put her to sleep, put her down.
Would she like go back and forth like she was disoriented a little bit?
Well, she would just kind of walk around a little bit, and then she would go right up to the brick wall, and like her nose would touch it, and then she would just stand there and like stare at the brick wall, and so it was heartbreaking. She wasn't that old. She was maybe 6 or 7 years old, and she wasn't that old. But we had my parents decided and put her down, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, is that gonna happen to me?
Right.
Right.
So.
Well, on like that show Skinwalker Ranch, the cattle there, it was they found there's a lot of radiation for some reason. And they would do the same thing. Their eyes got white and walk around and just, not act right. And so. Yeah,
she did definitely acted weird. And I was just heartbroken. Well, I love my dogs, all of them.
So that was probably radiation
poison.
Yeah.
And, for the first couple years after that, I was sick all the time. I would have these fleeting, I would get these low grade temperatures that would just come and go for no reason. My glands in my neck and under my arms would get sore and swell up a little bit, and then they'd go away. I'd get rashes on my cheeks and on my belly and in the cracks of my arms and behind my knees, just little rashes. And then they would go away as quickly as they came. And I thought I was allergic to the world. I had no immune system. Every bug that came through town, I got sick. I developed palpitations in flip-flops in my heart. I got chronic, like colitis symptoms. I was a mess. and I, of course, was struggling with anxiety. I felt like at one point, shortly after that night, I felt like I was having a nervous breakdown because all the memories just started flooding back so hard and so fast that I couldn't deal with it. My eye is twitching when I think about it.
No, were you the original of that house?
No.
Okay. Did you ever have a chance to talk to anybody that lived there before?
Yeah, my dad
Did you?
did. Yeah, my
Yeah.
dad worked with the guy that he bought the house off of.
Okay.
They never reported having any weird stuff happen. But when Bud did go knocking on doors,
Right.
and talked to the neighbors, that's when we found the two direct witnesses. One of the other neighbors several doors down said they hadn't seen anything since we'd moved in there, but they said they had seen a bright white light above the house on a couple of different occasions before we even moved in.
Oh,
But the dude that Daddy got the house from swore up and down that they never had any weird stuff happen. And I'm gonna tell you this: so happens the people who bought the house from Dad after when he had to move. I remember the conversation with the real estate agent. And they're like, if nobody died here, we don't have to tell them anything, right? So seriously, and so. But the man and woman who bought it were friends with somebody I went to high school with. And of course, eventually my high school mates got wind of it. And she told the people that bought the house about it. And they thought it was fascinating. And they invited me to come over, which I never got a chance to, but I did have a little communication with them for a while. They swore up and down, no paranormal activity whatsoever, no ghostly stuff, no weird stuff, no alien stuff. Nothing has ever happened. And as far as I know, so apparently it's us and not the house. So I don't know what the light was above the house right before we came. Maybe they were getting ready for us. I don't know.
Well, I was thinking about maybe it was a portal or something there that we had been there and other people had experienced it, but it doesn't sound like that's the case yet.
And I don't know about you guys, but I can tell you, to me, this is disclosure.
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When experiencers talk out about their stories, and yours just carries a lot of weight, Deb, because of all of the physical evidence and everything else. To me, this is disclosure. I don't need the government to say, oh, guess what? They're real.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in 2017, when I saw the videotapes on TV for the first time on mainstream media news, and they were taking it seriously and they weren't laughing at it, there wasn't a laugh track, I felt encouraged. Yet I felt vindicated a little bit. And at the end of but beyond that, I don't think I don't think it's going to go very far. And I can't speak for all experiences, but I do talk to a lot of experiencers, and I can speak for myself. I don't need disclosure. I've already had my existential crisis and my ontological shock, and I got over it 40 years ago. And I don't need a government or anybody like that to tell me what I saw was real. All I need from them is to be heard. All I need from them is to be acknowledged. That's all I need from them. I don't need them, and I don't care whether they believe me or not. I'm telling my story. It is what it is. I understand if people don't want to believe it, but if I hadn't lived it, there'd be a lot of things about my story that I would have a problem trying to wrap my head around. I still work on trying to wrap my head around some of it. That's fine. That's okay. That's normal reaction. But I don't need disclosure from these people, and I don't need the fear narrative either, because I've worked for 40 years to overcome that fear, and I don't need them trying to feed it back to me again. It's not helpful. I know,
and
we love you.
We all feel that way, of course, here on this show and as friends. But unfortunately, there's so many people out there that won't believe it until the government says something.
I know.
or until they experience it
Yeah,
themselves.
that's true.
Yeah.
And
I just want them to know if when they do, because they probably will at some point or another in their life, then there'll be people here like us that will believe them and listen to them. Whenever I speak to experiencers, I always tell them, I see you, I validate you, you're not alone. And I'll be here for you. Don't be afraid.
And that's everything to an experiencer. And
It
I'm
is.
speaking as an experiencer. To hear the words, I believe you or I validate you.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And even if I can't personally resonate with what you've experienced, if I haven't had the same exact experience you have, I've certainly had the same feelings you've had.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand those. And I don't ever want to minimize somebody who's still in that place of terror and fear and struggling. I don't ever want to minimize that because I was there and I know how that feels, but I want them to know they don't have to live there forever, that they can move past it. They can. So
don't get me wrong, though. I'd love to turn the TV on and see these UFOs landing on the White House lawn and walking out. Yeah, I'd love that.
And then I'm so hateful. I'm such a fat girl that lost a whole bunch of weight, and all the boys used to make fun of me and laugh at me when I was fat. And then when I lost a bunch of weight, they all started sniffing around me, and I would look at them and say, "Where were you when I was 100 pounds heavier?" And then I get an attitude, and then nobody want to talk to me. I'm going to be the same way with these government people when they finally come around and they say, "Well," I'm like, "Nah, I don't think so. You had your chance. Figure it out for yourself." I'm here for the people that had the experience. I don't care what you think.
Right.
I do have an attitude.
Could you share more of the experience of what happened in '83 there might be some of the audience who don't know exactly what the experience is. I don't think I know the whole experience, so I feel like I'm being kept in suspense, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you want to. I was living with my parents and had 2 little kids. I was getting ready to go sew. Well, actually, I wasn't going to sew. I was going to cut patterns out because I'm not that talented. But I was going to help my friend cut some patterns out and make a little money. She just lived the street behind us, so it was close. We had finished dinner and I was washing my hands at the kitchen sink and I happened to look out and I saw a weird light coming out of the pump house at my parents' swimming pool. Pump house was like the size of like a tool shed you buy at Kmart parking lot or something, Anyways, and I mentioned to my mom, "Hey, there's a weird light out there." And she said, "Oh, don't worry about it. Your dad will get it when he gets home." My dad was working second shift at the local Ford plant at the time, right down the road. And so I prepared myself. 5 minutes later, I'm in my car in the front of the house, and it's a tri-level with a split driveway. So I decide before I leave my kids alone, my mom, I'm going to drive down that side drive and then to turn around back by Dad's workshop just to have a look around back there to make sure. I'm thinking burglars. I'm not thinking aliens or any of that weird stuff, right? My old man's got like 6 Indian motorcycles and a couple of Alpine Sunbeams back there. He's been restored. A lot of money. And people steal things. So I do the turnaround. I don't see anything. And I go on over to my friends. Maybe takes 5 minutes total. Then I called my mom because I said, well, I did notice that the pedestrian door to the garage that's attached to the house was open. And I knew Penny had been in the garage. That's my dog. So I knew she had to be out. She was the pussy of the neighborhood. And when she was in heat, she was everywhere. So that's why she's in the garage, because she was in heat. But I said, do you want me to come home? And she's like, no, don't worry about it. Your dad will get it. Dad always fixes everything, right? So I said, okay. And I hung up. And as soon as I hung up, the phone rang again. And I answered it because that's what I did at my friend's house. I picked it right back up and it was Mom. And she says, I need you to come home right now. And I kind of was taken aback by it and a little bit surprised because she sounded scared and my mom never sounded scared. And so I said, what's wrong? And my girlfriend's husband, who could hear the conversation, says, tell her to call the police. That's what we pay him for. And she heard him and said, no, I don't want anyone here but you. Okay. So I said, well, I'll be back shortly. I'm just going to go make sure everything's all right. And I left. A couple minutes, I was back home, pulled up that side drive and got out, went into the patio room. Mom was there. I grabbed Dad's shotgun, was next to the trash compactor because that's where he kept it. And it was not loaded because whenever we moved in, I'd asked that it not be with my kids there. And Mom says, you know, that's not loaded, right? And I said, yeah, well, whoever's out there doesn't know that. I could get close enough to hit him with it first, you know? So I go out there, and that whole thing is just weird because I was not that person. I was not that brave person. And I would do that now, but not back then, not when I was 24. So I don't know what came over me, but I went out there, looked around, didn't see anything. Did a quick pass over the workshop again just to make sure it was secure. And that's when I found Penny in her dad's ladder truck, but she would not come out to me, which was kind of weird. Went back across the yard and into the open door into the garage. And while I was in the garage, all of a sudden, I felt like I lit up on fire. I felt like I was on fire. I felt this panic sweep over me. And I thought, I have to get out of here right now. And I turned to run through that open doorway. And when I did, I was hit in like the chest area by a ball of light that I couldn't get away from. And it was so intense and bright that it hurt. And I felt like I was shaking. And then I felt like I was vibrating, but I couldn't move and I couldn't see. And I don't know how long I was in that condition. It felt like every molecule of my body was starting to pull apart. And I thought I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm dead. And then the vibrating stopped, the light waned, and my awareness of my surroundings came back. And at that point, I realized I was no longer in the doorway, but I was out on the patio about 10 feet. Still couldn't move. And I could see, but everything was splotchy, like flash bulbs splotchy in your eye, in your vision. And it was dark out. And it really, I didn't remember it being dark when I got there. So, then I noticed a movement in front of me. I thought it was kids in the backyard. There were 6 of them and they came from everywhere and they all kind of lined up over by the driveway and the pool fence. And I remember thinking, what are these kids doing in Mom's backyard? And I heard a disembodied voice twice. Once it said it was unfortunate I felt pain. And then another time it said, your children are fine. And as I watched these kids kind of glide in front of me, when I looked off to my left, that's when I saw this egg-shaped thing. Wasn't very big, wasn't much bigger than a pump house, a swimming pool. Shaped like an egg or an avocado on its fat bottom, point up. And there was this ball of white light about the size of a basketball, maybe 10 feet from it, and in front of me. And it went up, it went down really slow, and then it went back up. Then I heard, when I saw that thing, I don't even know where those kids went. I don't remember seeing them go in there. I don't have no idea where they went. All I know is when I saw that thing, I was like, and I didn't even pay attention to them anymore. I have no idea what happened to them. But then I heard it. Then I heard my name, but it was a different voice. And as soon as I heard my name, it was like someone snapped their fingers and I woke up and I could move. And I turned and walked towards that sound. And it was Mom standing on the upper porch. And she was hanging out the window. And she's like, hey, she goes, is everything okay? And I remember saying to her, everything's cool. But I'm thinking, I feel weird. What just happened? Right. I don't remember any of this now. But I know something weird just happened and I feel extremely weird and gross and I wanted to get wet. So I called my friends to come over. I said, hey, instead of sewing, you want to swim? And they're like, sure. So my friend brought her teenage daughter over and we went and got the swimming pool. As we walk across the yard, her daughter's foot starts to burn and tingle and then it gets numb and she's complaining about her foot and leg being numb. And we thought she'd stepped on a bee or something. We didn't see anything. So we got in the pool. We were in there about 10 minutes and all of a sudden, all 3 of us got sick. We all started feeling real nauseous and nasty. and my eyes were hurting real bad, and I was starting to see halos around everything. And so they went home, and I went in and went to bed. And when I got up the next morning, my eyes were swollen shut, and I was in so much excruciating pain that my mom took me to the emergency room. And I don't know why, because this is not typical, but there was an ophthalmologist in the emergency room. And I don't know why he was in there. I have no idea why he was in there, but he was. And he asked my mom and I if we could go across the street to his office so he could look at me closer. He'd have his girls, make room, and they did. And he asked me, have you ever looked into the ark? Have you looked into the ark of a welder's torch? Have you been somewhere where there was an eclipse and stared at the sun? And I'm like, no. And I'm not remembering the light yet. I'm not remembering that night yet. So I'm thinking, why is this dude asking me these crazy questions? They gave me a bunch of medicine. And I will tell you, my eyes were never right after that. I never wore glasses beforehand, but as they healed, I went way farsighted. And so by the time I was 25, I was wearing, 2.5s pluses to read and stuff. And they burned and watered for years, on and off for no reason. But anyway, so a couple of days pass. I can't sleep. I'm having a panic attack, and I don't even know why. I can't go in the bathroom upstairs because it overlooks the backyard. And I feel like something's going to pull me out the window. And I feel like I'm losing my mind because none of it makes sense. I'm sleeping in the bedroom between my two, sitting in a chair on the floor between my kids' twin beds, like all night up. And everybody comes to the house that weekend for 4th of July. They're going to come swim. So the whole family comes over. And they, my oldest nephew runs in the house and he says, Grandma, what's wrong with your yard? And we're like, we don't know what you're talking about. So all the adults went out there and there was that mark in the yard. And we're all just kind of standing there staring at it. And my mom kind of laughs and says, oh, that's where our UFO landed the other night. And I looked at my mom and I'm like, what? Why did you say that? She's giggling a little bit, kind of nervous, and the kids are giggling. And then they go swim. I don't think it's funny. I was like, somebody smacked me in the face with a brick. And I'm standing there looking at that mark in the yard. And all of a sudden I see these two big black eyes just looking back at me. And then it was like somebody just pulled their finger out of the dike and boom, all these memories started racing back. And even as the week or two passed, I was remembering stuff that happened 20 years ago that I had forgotten about, And that's like that in that moment, I think I had my nervous breakdown right then. And it was like a week later, Mom goes, oh, I remember why I called you home now. And I'm like, what? She goes, don't you remember when I called you home last week? Or, why I called you home? And I'm like, I never really thought about it. Why did you call me home? And she's like, well, I was standing here at the kitchen sink, washing my hands and washing dishes. And I saw this ball of light around the bird feeder, like a basketball sized ball of light. And she said, I thought it was your dad pulling in the driveway, but then I didn't see a car. And then I thought it was a flashlight, but I didn't see anybody. And it got littler and littler and littler. And as soon as it disappeared, I got the thought in my head that I needed to call you and tell you to come home right now. And I'm like, well, okay.
Interesting.
Because I thought, well, if you'd have told me that then, I don't know, I might have just sent the sheriff and not come myself,
Right.
But anyway, that's the event that started this whole push to me to be public. So
Bless you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
well,
Yeah, we witnessed a basketball sized light across the road one night, just moving real slow west and into the trees. And remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
well, that's
Deb,
a common theme.
props like no other. I cannot imagine like how scary that had to be, especially the year that it happened. During that time, not having as much, support as what we have now these days.
Oh man, there was nothing. I mean, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have cell phones.
Right.
I mean, even the investigation that Bud did was done with long distance phone calls and a whole lot of letter writing by me, and a few well planned trips back and forth that I couldn't afford, but other people that he worked with would donate, money for me to get a ticket to come. So,
But we had phone booths, by God.
yes, sir, Bob.
Yeah,
And
we
at
had
long
phone booths.
distance, if you made a long distance call on a Saturday after 6 p.m., it was cheaper.
Right.
Right.
Bring some
Make sure you use
dimes and
collect.
quarters with you.
No cell phones, no internet. We had none of this, none of this.
Right.
And I felt, I was luckier than most because I had family who experienced it with me and were supportive of me, and witnesses and friends and neighbors. So, I mean, I had a better support system than most people have way back then. But I still felt a lot of times like I was on an island in the middle of nowhere. I mean, and it's not like we talked about this stuff every day.
Right.
I could go literally years without talking about this if nothing weird happened. And sometimes little things we just put away somewhere.
So Dad was okay with it?
My dad
Yeah.
was very supportive of me. Only thing that he didn't like was that his yard got messed up, because he was like the yard whisperer. He was like, I messed up my damn yard. I worked my ass off. It was the grass thing for him. It was the grass thing. Yeah. But no, he was very supportive of me. And
nice.
when Bud wrote the book, it wasn't just a me book. It was an entire family book, and it was an entire family decision. When he came to us and said, can I write a book about this? I think this is an important case, and I think people need to know about it. And we're like, no, I don't think so. That wasn't the whole point of this. I just wanted, honestly, when I wrote to him, I was hoping that this man would tell me, oh, no, it's not that. Here, it's this and this and this. I was hoping he would tell me that it wasn't this, but that wasn't to be. So, he finally convinced us that our story could help a lot of people. He brought boxes of letters and we finally agreed as a family, okay, we'll do this. I was the spokesperson. I got punished for throwing my sister under the bus. So I was the one who was going to take one for the team.
Right.
But I was lucky.
Tell the audience, Deb, what book this is that you're referring to.
It's called Intruders: The Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods by Bud Hopkins, and it was a miniseries on CBS in 1992, loosely based on that book.
Mm-hmm. And it was a bestseller.
It was a New York Times bestseller. Yeah.
Were you okay with everything that went down on the TV part of it?
At first, I wasn't, but in retrospect, it introduced the subject to a lot of people mainstream people who'd never had any knowledge of it before, and it did it respectfully. Okay. And that was all I could hope for.
Right.
I still wish somebody would tell our actual stories, my family story, as it really was, because I think it's pretty interesting and kind of funny sometimes. Right. But it served its purpose, so I'm thankful for that.
Okay.
I am too.
The reason I ask is we have a friend that they wrote a book about her family, and she wasn't happy about it at all. So
they made a movie.
Yeah, made a movie.
Yeah. So moving forward, you have written a few books yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about those books?
Well, I wrote Abducted: The Story of Intruders Continues. And I ended up writing it with my sister. I didn't intend for that to happen, but I had already finished the book. And then my mom and my sister came and said, you need to let your sister be a part of this. I'm like, why? I've already finished. So I had to figure out that alternating chapters thing because, she did have an interesting and important story to tell too. So I got it all put together. And that's, it's by Debbie Jordan and Kathy Mitchell, which is my sister. And we went with our real names. At this point, our kids were older. We felt safer. And I felt like if I'm going to tell my story, my first person story, I need to own it. I can't expect people to listen to me and even remotely believe what I'm saying. If I won't even give you my real name, that's just not right in my eyes. So, and then my second,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say my second book is it's called Extraordinary Contact: Light Beyond Intruders, and that is just from 2021. I finished in 2021. That's more like journal entries of just weird things and different stuff that's happened since then, and how I've kind of, evolved through it all.
Mhm. Both very good books, and I highly recommend them.
And I just wanted to let our listeners know that in the Bob Hopkins book, they didn't use your real name.
Mm-mm.
No, so if you read those books, you're going to wonder, where's that name at? No, well, they didn't use the real.
My name in the Intruders book was Kathy Davis,
Okay.
which is dumb because my sister's name was Kathy. But Bud said, when he said we're gonna do pseudonyms to protect everybody, so pick a name that you like, pick a name of someone that you admire. Well, oh dumb me, I admired my older sister. I wanted to be like her, so I picked the name Kathy. And Kathy looked at me like but Bud said, no, it'll be all right, because that's not really who you are. Kathy, you pick another name, and it'll be okay. It'll be okay. So that's how I ended up.
Great. So, in brief, Deb, I know we're getting really short on time here. What do you expect to see in the next year or two with Disclosure?
I'm hoping, I'll just say, I hope I see a lot more experiencers come together and group together and support each other and tell their stories, because that's really what it's all about. And as far as government stuff goes, I mean, these guys have been spinning their wheels for 60 years. I don't in the foreseeable future see anything different from that. As a matter of fact, I feel like they'll probably try to discredit it even more in some way or another. So I'm just going to ignore them and focus on the people that have actually been there, and we'll get it done.
Very good.
I like that.
Yep.
Very well said.
Well, we appreciate your sharing your story with us. That's
Very.
Yep. A lot of people appreciate it too that we're listening. So,
Well, good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I love y'all.
We missed you.
I know. I missed you too. I'll meet you one day.
Yes. And it's beautiful when experiencers connect the way that we have with the mission of opening things up. The bonds that you can make
Yeah.
are absolutely phenomenal.
And their lifetime. Like I'm still talk to people I met 35 years ago. And when we get back together again, I don't care if it was 10 years. We just take right up like it was when we left, like no time has passed. We're all just still connected. It's a special bond that just can't be broken.
Yeah. Great. And big kudos and thanks to our listeners.
Yep.
There were some, we didn't get to it, but there were some little stories in there from some of the listeners that the experiencers they've had. And I want to say, is it okay if we say contact Mary or contact me or one of us on Facebook or email, and definitely get a hold of us and let's talk.
Yes, definitely.
Get your stories out.
make contact.
Yes.
Yep. Sharing your story. It's the most important thing.
Yep.
Yes.
Or we are the voices of contact.
Weird disclosure.
Right.
Yeah.
That is right.
Absolutely. Every experiencer out there that shares their story, they're a part of the solution.
Yep.
Well, until next Tuesday, right? We're going to have you're going to have something going on, but every Tuesday at 3:00. Tune
Tuesday at
in.
3:00. We'll
Yep.
see you next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Love you all.